Hi everyone and welcome to the Power 365 show. My prediction is that this could be one of the smartest individuals we've ever had on the show. No pun intended, we sit down today to have a chat with Walter Sun, the founder of Bing Predicts and currently General Manager of Market Insights at Microsoft. This is a fantastic topic that is really just the beginning of its story. Let's delve a little deeper into how AI is transforming industry via social and web insights and what the future could possibly hold. Full show notes can be found at nz365guy.com/87. Now let's get on with the show. Hi Walter, welcome to the Power 365 show.
Thanks for having me, Mark.
So good to have you on here. I'm keen to talk about your area of expertise in Microsoft around market insights and market intelligence. But before we do that, can you tell us a bit about your life, your family? What do you do when you're not working?
Sure. I really enjoy sports, both participating and watching. My wife, daughter, and I enjoy playing basketball and tennis together. We also do some hiking. I personally also like to run and swim. I'm doing more of the latter. It's better on my knees, and we're not getting younger.
So run and swim.
Yeah.
Yeah, swimming, they say, is really good for your joints, isn't it? It doesn't put the stress on like, impact type sports.
Yeah, I mean, people used to complain to me about how bad things are in the knees, basketball, whatever, on hard courts, and I didn't really understand it. But now as I get older, I realize I can see the difference. So I think swimming really helps. Gives me exercise without the pain on my knees.
Yeah, so true. So have you always lived in Seattle?
I've actually moved quite all over the place. I grew up in the Southeast and Midwest growing up, and then I did my graduate work in Boston, and I've worked in New York, California, Minnesota, and Washington State. So I've kind of moved around different parts of the country. Yeah.
Wow. So tell me a bit about kind of what you did. Like I noticed that you study at MIT.
Sure.
You've done a lot of research. In the area that I suppose affects your work now. But can you tell me a bit about your journey and kind of what you did to ultimately leading to moving into Microsoft?
Sure. So I did my undergraduate work at Georgia Tech in Atlanta, studying electrical engineering, doing specialties in signal processing and image processing. And then I went to MIT in Boston to do my master's, again in speech processing and image processing. And between my master's and PhD, I went to work in industry. I worked in New York City, worked in a finance company doing quant work, and then I moved to California to work in signal processing at Apple. I worked on some of the early versions of QuickTime.
Wow.
And then I went to join a startup company where we built DSL modems. This is late 90s, so we're actually one of the first companies to build modem routers at home. So it's kind of interesting because, I'd go to CES and we'd talk to customers and we'd explain about this router, and people would say, it's very nice, but people at home don't need more than one IP address. and you think about it, this is the late 90s, that people never thought that they needed more than one device at home. So nowadays, people have hundreds of IP addresses at home. Everything, their toaster, their refrigerator, everything has IP. So it's kind of neat to see how things have moved around. Anyway, after that, I went back to MIT to finish my PhD, and then after I finished my PhD, I looked at professorship positions as well as industry roles. I enjoyed teaching and research, but I also thought that building products was a lot of fun from the experience at Apple and the startup company. And so I learned from work experiences between my master's and PhD that that's something that I might want to do more of. So Microsoft offered me a position working on codecs, which is a good match to my PhD work in image processing, along with the prior work experience, at Apple and QuickTime, for instance. And codecs are algorithms which encode and decode multimedia, primarily to offer more efficient storage and transmission. And so that area kind of was a good area of work in, back then. That was 14 years ago. And that kind of brought me into Microsoft. Within Microsoft, I worked in the codec team for a few years, and I moved into multimedia search. So the multimedia theme was in common there. So it's a natural transition. And then when I was in multimedia search, I did some work and then moved into web search, where I was improving and maintaining the first version of our web crawler, which is the program that downloads and indexes the public web. And this will kind of come into play later when you hear a little bit more about what I'm doing in market insights. Around the same time, I also became a lead in my team, and I built out the first end-to-end pipeline for surfacing new results in our search engine. So, nowadays, people assume all the latest information is in search engines. But, years ago, decades ago, the first search engines were more of like directory services, and we're just kind of building out the idea of showing new results, news on the site, so you can get it all in one place rather than having to go to news sites or whatever to get your news.
So is a lot of your experience then in Microsoft being in the Bing side of things?
The experience, yeah, a couple years in Codex, which is kind of multimedia image processing, and then several years in Bing. And Bing involved a lot of information retrieval, machine learning, some early deep learning work, which we're continuing now. But yeah, then from Bing, I moved over to apply this technology that I'm working on. Well, I guess the basic idea is that in Bing, I started a project called Bing Predicts, which is a project that leverages web signals, so basically search data as well as IE and Edge browse signals, all anonymized and aggregated, and as well as the web cache. Because we run a search engine, we have a copy of the public web, and so all that information is used to look at what's happening publicly and using that information to make inferences about what consumers are doing in aggregate. Yeah, and so that's kind of how we moved from Bing into this enterprise work in terms of it's called market intelligence now, or market insights. And so the idea is that the same predictions that we can do in Bing that we showed for reality shows and elections and other things, we can also do for enterprise companies. We help them inform them what's happening on the web, what's the pulse of their products and brands, and that's kind of what we're doing now. Yeah.
Wow. So we'll drill into that a bit more. But how did you actually transition into the Microsoft Biz application team?
Yeah, good question. I think the initial work we did in Bing Predicts, I guess it's to make it kind of demonstrative for everyday users. We did predictions on public events first. So as I mentioned, reality shows and elections and sports, in fact, and that kind of just set the tone. If people ask us, hey, what is this capability you have? We can demonstrate and say, look, using the signal, we can actually predict who wins American Idol with very high precision, right? And these type of things. And so we did that. And once we finished doing that, we continued to use similar technology, the same technology, to apply to enterprise market insights. How do we help marketing teams or sales teams understand more about their customers? The same way you can predict what a popular vote is on 3 or 4 contestants on a TV show. It's the same as helping a company look at their 3 products or 4 products in their product line, saying which of these products resonates best with the customers, which demographics like my high-end shoe versus my entry-level shoe, or which demographics likes this new product that we're trying to sell.
Yeah. Wow, that's so powerful. So across your career, what's been the kind of highlight achievements that have made you most proud so far?
Yeah, I think from work, I think getting the Bing Predicts project off the ground was good because it evolved into market insights, and it was satisfying because it involved a ton of pitch sessions and a lot of iterations to get to where we are today. Convincing people that it was worth doing. I think I feel like it's a lifetime's worth of sweat equity has been put into it. So I'm really happy to it's doing that. I think away from work, I've been working with elementary and middle school children on preparing them for math competitions and tournaments. I used to do these competitions myself, and I really enjoyed them. But I think what's more interesting is I'm finding it, maybe even more satisfying watching students I work with compete, because partially it's scalable. You get more people doing it than just myself. And then I really believe that being proficient and competent in math is very foundational, and something that I think the next generation is losing out on because of calculators, computers, and just a lack of a need to add things up in real time in daily life.
Wow. So good that you've got that outlet as, outside the company as well. So I love it. But let's talk about market insights. What is market insights? I know it's a new term that we've come out in the last 6 or so months that I think I've started seeing it.
Yes.
And what's your involvement with that technology?
Our mission is to enable our customers to understand what consumers say, seek, and feel about brands and products. The Market Insights product is a marriage of 2 product technologies. The first is Microsoft Social Engagement, which many of your listeners might be familiar with since it came from the NetBreeze acquisition, and it's been in production in Dynamics 365 for the past 5 years. And that product ingests multiple social sources. You have forums, news sources, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Reddit, YouTube, Discuss, etc. And we derive insights on what's happening in real time on the web in the social space. The second aspect is the Bing Predicts work, which I mentioned a little bit earlier, which takes aggregated and anonymized search data such as that from Bing, as well as opted-in, anonymized, and aggregated browse data from Internet Explorer and Edge to better understand web activity. Finally, we also leverage the fact that, since we have a search engine, we have a copy of the web, public web. So we can use that to look at forums, blogs, and news sites quickly to understand how things are evolving. And my involvement in it is, having a background in data science and engineering, my early involvement was prototyping and building predictive models in Bing Predicts. So I think one of the fun things about these ML models is that you can compare against actual results very quickly when the events themselves are happening. So it's quite fun doing that. But going deeper on your question about technology, we build the in-house algorithms which process billions of data points. And we have the unique data, as I mentioned earlier, and also the rare expertise for processing web-based signals. The social engagement team has had years of experience building sentiment models for social, and the Bing Predicts team has years of experience working in Bing, building web search rankers and document processors. So all of this expertise, when you put these minds together, allows us to convert a large quantity of data into digestible, relevant, actionable information for our customers.
Wow. So I just want to kind of drill into a couple of key concepts you came up there with. One is signal, which is, we know it's really important. Too much information is like having no information if you can't find, what you're looking for. So a lot of your algorithms, I take it, are dealing with getting the signal clean, if you like, right?
That's right.
Getting the noise out of it. And then on insights, do you see that when we look at kind of use cases for this, you've mentioned, various brands that want to monitor their brands. Would also there be the opportunity to monitor, for example, your competitors' brands and key product lines that might compete with yours? What other use cases do you see around the insights?
Yes, good questions. So the first question, to answer your first question, the idea is that, we're starting with raw data, right? So for instance, you look at a Twitter feed, you get a lot of information, a ton of information, and just finding everything you need is difficult. So the first step of our processing is to create signals. So we take, all of our search data and anonymize and aggregate and create signals, such as like, this is a trend happening in the state of California, or in Twitter, the social sentiment for your product is positive, 25% positive, and this is the reason. That's the first step. The next stage beyond that is to take these signals and create insights, meaning that, first thing, after you have some signals saying, hey, 25% of people like your product in California, for instance, the insight might be, hey, did you realize that your ad campaigns on the West Coast of America are more resonating better than the ones on the East Coast, right? So that's an insight. And then once we can build out good insights, we want to go to the next step of providing recommended actions. And this would be kind of initially maybe something simple and soft just to get people's confidence that we have the right idea. For instance, like in this same example, maybe that you want to recommend doing advertising campaigns in a different part of the country. Later on, when we actually, have more information and understand the customer better, we can even provide more deeper insights, maybe offering specific recommendations, which hopefully they can take. So that's kind of the end of the story. So the customer example would be, anyone in marketing or sales that wants to know a little bit more about their competitors or their current products. There are existing products out there that can let you look at your own product. You can track your websites and information and get analytics there. But since we actually aren't in doing that, we actually look at everything on the web. We can look at all your competitors. And that's valuable in a couple of ways. One way is, like you said, just knowing day to day how they're doing, what they're releasing. We have an alert service that we're releasing in April that you can actually track their names and get emails every day about them. But I think in addition to that, you can also look at use them as a proxy for launches. Suppose you're producing a new product line, and you don't have any prior products, so you don't know how your campaigns or your announcements will resonate with the customers. You can actually look at related products from competitors and look at their releases and their announcements and look at the correlation to extrapolate how your release will do. And that's kind of one of the things that we want to help you with, help customers with. If you have, this is my first time I'm selling a new shoe, but hey, shoe companies exist out there. So this shoe is meant to be a lot like, competitor A's specific shoes. So let's look at how they released this shoe 9 months ago. They had this, special announcement in New York City, and they did X, Y, and Z. Maybe we do X, Y, and Z too, and let's compare the volume of interest on the web. If the volume of interest on the web is 50% of the other one, then maybe the sales volume initially will be half. That's kind of the idea we're going about.
Yeah. Interesting. So one of the other things you said there was around, understanding what people say, think, and feel. That's one of your goals.
That's right.
And I can understand say, right? That's pretty straightforward. If someone says something, they've searched for something, they've spoken something, done an audio search, whatever it might be, that's easy to if you like, understand. Think and feel, That's interesting, right? To me, that's interesting. So, when you what does this mean when you articulate how people think? Let's just take think to start with, and then we'll unpack feel. How do you get that information?
You actually say seek and feel. I'm sorry, not think.
Seek.
Seek as in like searching, yeah.
So say, seek, and feel. Okay, I'm glad I clarified that.
Sorry about that.
Because I love it that our AI is already at that point that we can think, which I know we're a few years away. I'll give it to 2025, and I'm pretty sure it'll be there by that point. But
right.
But okay, so seek, once again, I can understand that then. So let's unpack feel, because obviously there are signals that you're picking up that do kind of indicate sentiment or how someone's feeling.
That's right.
So how does that work for you?
Right. Good question. So, you understand say is what social people are saying on social. Seek is what people are doing on the web, whether it be, on search engines or in their browsers. Mm-hmm. Feel is the idea of, understanding sentiment. And so we have a lot of machine learning algorithms. We're doing some deep learning. We have some long short-term memory models, which are used to help understand context of phrases. So people have short phrases on Twitter or short phrases on search. And if on Twitter you say, so-and-so is killing it. We have so-and-so, we identify so-and-so as an entity, whether it be a product or brand. And then we actually look at the surrounding text to understand what the sentiment is. And the word killing is interesting too, because that term is usually considered negative, but we have to actually understand the context that, in colloquial terms, that could actually mean something that's actually cool or good. So our algorithms use, learn over time with millions of samples what people are saying and what that means. Does that kind of phrase typically connotate a positive feeling to that brand or a negative feeling? And then we can put it all together to help you understand how people feel about your brands and products.
Yeah, interesting. I originate from New Zealand, and I notice being up here in the British culture and even Irish, I notice it to some degree as well. We use sarcasm a lot, and sarcasm, but with people, it was interesting. I was just out this weekend. I had a friend over from France, and the sarcasm was just 100% lost on her. And I lived in Australia for 4 years, and Australians, as a rule, they just don't get sarcasm at all. And the thing is that when you then, because I've worked with Microsoft Social Engagement for a long time, you would see these type of, messaging coming through. And of course, it struggled to understand the context, around sarcasm. So is there kind of any advancements, not necessarily that you're doing right now with Market Insights, but just in the industry in general, around how you pick up those nuances of language?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that the point is that, with machine learning, the idea is the machines will learn typically, for instance, I mentioned earlier, we do some kind of analysis of the user, so we can actually do demographic breakdown. So maybe we can understand that, for instance, I don't know if this is true, but I'll make an example. 25 and maybe 18 to 24-year-olds, when you say killing it, is actually a positive, whereas a 55 to 64-year-old, which says something is killing it, that's actually a negative thing. So the machine learning model is actually, you don't have to actually know that's the fact, but the machine can know for itself. The machine says, hey, you've given me a lot of samples of people, and it seems to be younger people when they use the word, this particular phrase, it's a positive connotation. You've given me the same thing for people 55 and older, and it seems to be a negative connotation. So there is that value in terms of understanding, is it sarcasm? Is this a positive term, negative term? There is one thing which I tell people, which is interesting, is that if you and I as humans can't tell if someone's sarcastic, then it's hard for machines. Sometimes we can't tell, right? Like I could tell you something half jokingly, and you might be like, is he joking or not joking, right? Or especially if it's in text, because there's no intonation.
Exactly.
So I think the interesting thing, with speech, I think there's a lot more ability to understand intonations, inflections, whereas with text, if you say, yeah, I'm killing it, and you're like, is that positive, negative? I think that there are advancements to understanding, as I mentioned, context specific or demographic specific. But I think there is still the idea that machines can only get as good as humans, basically. I know there's some things that can do better, but I think if you think about it, if it's really hard for a human to tell, it also becomes quite hard to teach a machine to tell a difference. Yeah.
And I suppose that if you added into that mix all the various languages in the world, it's another whole complex layer of the top.
That's right. And you mentioned a good example of culture, where different cultures have different ways of expressing sarcasm, or some things are, maybe some people say certain things in a joking way and other people don't realize. So that part, I think machines can learn. Machines can say, hey, I know you're from New Zealand, or I know you're, so that can help. But I think that at the same time, what's interesting is this, people understanding that it is a hard problem by virtue of the fact that if it's a problem a human being can't easily discern, then it's actually a very hard problem for a machine to discern.
Yeah.
But we're doing our best to make it as good as possible, of course. Yeah, getting it close to, starting to get it as good as humans can detect, and then hopefully even doing better. But it's tough.
It should theoretically always get better, right, in time, because you've got a greater data set than any one human could potentially tap into.
Correct.
So very interesting. So another question that I have, which, slightly off topic, is how to ask an effective question to market insights, right? It's easy if it's going to brand A has brand B and they've got, this range of products.
Yeah.
It's something we know what it is. But what happens when it's, when we drill into the ontology of a word or a phrase,
yes,
and it's the nuances around it. So I might say, a blue car, but that was it what make a car was it? What model of car was it? What color of blue? Was it sky blue? Was it ocean blue? There's a whole bunch of nuances around the concept of a blue car. How do you unpack, enabling customers to potentially ask the system the right questions?
Yes. Yeah, one of the features we're shipping in April is a feature we call assisted query. And the idea behind that is that kind of like what you're talking about in terms of understanding what shade of blue you have. There are a lot of terms that may be ambiguous. So, for instance, let's look at the word eagles. The first thing assisted query does, which you may be familiar with search engines or even editors, if you use Microsoft Word or Bing, is if you start typing eagles and you type EAG, by the time you hit G, the word eagles as a suggestion pops up. That's good to finish. But I think what we also you want to make sure we know that that's the intent of your word. But besides that, there's actually multiple intents of what eagles could be. So in our product, because we're looking at products and brands, we would give you suggestions for 3 potential things, possibly even more. But the first thing is we offer you the professional American football team in Philadelphia. There's also a 70s rock band, and then there's the animal, right? So what we would do is when you start typing eagles, you type EAG, would pop up, on the drop down, different options. Hey, do you want the football team? Do you want the rock band? Or do you want an animal? And if you select it, we would provide enough extra context around that search term to make sure that the information you get is related only to that. So for instance, if you type in eagles and then you click on the professional football team, we would actually put, tags like, American football, Philadelphia, which is where the team is based, and different things. Whereas if you want the rock band, it'll be things related to music. And then if you like the animal, then, certainly it'll just be related to the eagles and animal. And so the idea is you have the ability to do that. And in addition to that, once we get to know you better as a user, the models can actually learn. Like if your other topics, let's say you're tracking 8 topics, and the first 7 topics are all music related, and then the 8th time you type EAG, we would probably say, hey, the first recommendation is the rock band, because we're thinking you're looking at 7 rock bands. If you're looking at sports teams all around the world, then the Philadelphia Eagles would be probably the most likely context. And if you're a zookeeper and you're looking at a bunch of animals, then eagles, the animal, would be kind of what we show. So that's kind of how we do some basic understanding, of what you're looking for. We also look at surrounding text as well as past information you've done to build what they call a prior model, or just a clue as to what you're interested in and not interested in.
Yeah, interesting. So is your focus now at this point to target really, you're talking about, product-based research or brand-based research, as in just, in the past, kind of the use cases that I had, in the former product MSE was around potential crimes being committed in market, as in using social media, platforms, et cetera, to communicate those. So therefore, we were definitely looking at the nuances of word, because, someone's not going to talk about drugs and use the word drugs. They're going to use, street names for those words, hence why building out ontology. And then the other one was around, let's say there was an outbreak of a disease of some sort, and or there was people started getting sick because they were consuming a certain food or medicine, and all of a sudden people started, whether, on various social platforms talking about this. You could, the technology would allow you to see a pattern forming, the keyword density, that type of thing. Are you thinking now that you're moving away from that type of model and just focusing on the use case being around understanding the market, as that's the name now, marketing / brands, that type of thing, rather than those, because there's purpose-built products definitely out there for those other, scenarios that I just gave. So do you see you've doubled down on focusing on the market as such?
Yes, I believe what you said is correct. So we are focusing more on brands and products, signals in aggregate, understanding all that information in kind of an aggregate format rather than individual social care where you're saying, like you said, you're looking at John Doe posted something on there and you need to respond to him or take action on this specific individual. It's more like, hey, 500,000 people are talking about something on Twitter, and we can still give you individual examples when we're not getting rid of the fact that people want to be convinced that these are real signals. Like, hey, there are 500,000 people complaining about your product, and here's 11 examples. So we'll do that, but our goal isn't for you to go talk to each of these people individually. So you're right. The market is kind of looking at what's happening in aggregate on the market based off of both social and web, search signals and IE.
Mm-hmm. So can you give us some examples, of industries that you really see this landing effectively in?
Yeah. I think looking in, the marketing departments is something that people think, there's a lot of money spent in market research, market analysis, even look at doing advertisements. And so one of the things that we feel like is really important is oftentimes you do an ad campaign. It doesn't have to be digital. It can be on linear, on TV. And you want to know immediately what do people think about it. And so a lot of people actually search on the web. If it's interesting, they'll go online. They'll either tweet about it. If they're excited, they'll tweet, say, I really love this commercial about, John Doe and Jane Smith were on TV, and we really liked this thing. Or you might go on search engine and say, hey, I'm searching for this product. I don't really understand what this product is. And so we can quickly give you insights, give marketing people insights in terms of how well their campaigns landed. I mean, both in terms of sometimes it's like very popular and doesn't land well because people don't know what the product is. So if people are searching, what does product X do, or what is this product X, then it actually might not be good because you actually got people wondering, but they don't know what you're trying to land, the message you're landing. So that's one area. Marketing managers, campaign managers, that area. The sales team is also another area I think might value this. So we've talked to customers who have been interested in saying, hey, look, our sales force goes out to talk to customers all the time, and they have so many customers to deal with. It would be nice if you could help give them like summaries. So let's say you have 3 customer meetings face to face this afternoon, and you haven't had a chance to do a lot of the research on it. It'd be nice if you can just go on our product and quickly get summaries of product company A is focused on these 4 products. They want to advertise in these areas, and so when you go out to talk to them, you know exactly what they care about. Company B, recently just signed a deal with a competitor, so keep that in mind. So you go in there and talk to them and say, look, hey, we know you signed a deal with our competitors. Can you try our product? And this is the reason. Maybe we give them differentiators. Hey, the reason that they claim they publicly spoke about why they chose your competitor was because of cheaper pricing or whatever. Maybe you can go in and talk to them about some kind of opportunities there. And so those are the type of things that we think could be useful. You talk to salespeople who can make their lives easier in terms of providing them what's publicly available about the group. I think it even works at an individual level. Some of the stuff we're doing is also you go to companies, you want to understand what do they care about, right? And if you have a meeting, you can join some of the data we have with the LinkedIn data, since that's part of Microsoft. You can say, look, we know you're meeting with a marketing manager, a salesperson, and a person in in HR, for instance, right? And so then when you go in there, you both have a summary from the market about what this company does, who they bought, what they care about, as well as what each of these persons that you're going to meet with does. So you can just kind of better target your message to each of them when you meet them.
Excellent. So tell me a bit about you touched on Bing Predicts a couple of times, but I just want to understand. So the data is not just based on, the web cache or, the public web, but you're also obviously taking telemetry signals, which are, have no personal data in it, but you're taking telemetry systems from Internet Explorer and Edge browsers. And is that feeding into your kind of predictive models? Is that what the case is? Are those the only other 2 sources, or are there more?
There are 2 of many sources, but I think, those are 2 big sources. And the way it works, as you mentioned, is we have all the data we have from search is anonymized and aggregated, so we don't deal with any individual searches or even know who they are. But we're taking a look at what are people searching for, what documents they click on. And so the idea is that there's actually, some of the work we've done in context is that, once you get a handful of searches and documents people click on, we can predict with decent confidence their gender, age range, reading level, even political affiliation. And so,
wow.
And so that's why, by doing this, it's valuable to kind of help. It's actually valuable to the customer too, right? If we understand what customers are looking for, then the people make the products can build stuff people want, right? Like one of the things I was thinking about when I was trying to buy a car when I lived in California was I wanted traction control, and the local dealerships didn't have it. It was just a regular sedan that popular sedan people are selling. So people in California don't need them. But if there was a lot of people who wanted it, and maybe not in the case, I mean, I could have been a red herring, but if it was a case that they learned a lot of people are actually clamoring for certain features on a car, then maybe you should actually stock them or produce more of them in that certain area. So the idea is that we look at search traffic and say, look, if a lot of people are asking for something or looking for something in a certain region, we can use that as a signal, right? Same thing with IE and Edge. One of the things that we look at is what we call customer decision journey. So if you're buying a laptop, for instance, you don't just go out and buy it today. Usually you do some research. And we found, approximately speaking, people typically spend about 3 months doing it. First month, they're looking at the processor. There's two main processor makers out there, and you decide which one you want, as well as if you want a dual core, quad core, or whatever. Second month, you're like, okay, now I know I want a quad core made by this manufacturer. Which machine do I want? And so you go look at different laptops and say, do I want to buy, brand A, brand B, brand C? And once you lock down on that, the third month, you're looking at which site you buy it on. Do I go online and buy it, or do I go to a couple of these big box stores and buy the product? And so it's super important to kind of look at this in aggregate, all this stuff we would look at in aggregate. And the idea is that typically if you understand where people are in their journeys, you can help the maker know like what to do. So if you're actually the processor maker, it doesn't make sense for you to reach out to talk to them or try to do advertising campaigns with people in the third month of their journey because they've already decided what they're going to buy. On the other hand, if you're, the big box store trying to sell the product, you don't want to reach out to the customer day 2 because the person's like, hey, hang on, I'm not even sure what processor I want, much less, buy the final product. So it's kind of understanding where consumers are in their journey and taking all that data and aggregating it, in Internet Explorer and Edge, the way it works is it's all opted in and aggregated and anonymized, but we can look at, hey, typically, 34% of your users who go through step A go to step B or don't go to step B. So for instance, one thing I could tell you is that from browse data is if I tell you that people tend to go from page A to page B and spend a lot more time on second page, that might not be a big deal until you realize that page A is you and page B is your competitor, right? And now you suddenly say, oh, okay, now it's interesting to me because people come to my site and the first thing they do is go to my competitor's site. And then they spend twice the amount of time at my competitor's site. So can you please give me some insights as to why that is? And maybe you can look at through the process that people typically on page B have a lot more documents to click on or more product information to look at or something, right? And so that kind of information can be beneficial to go back and say, hey, look, guys, your competitors are more thorough than you and have a better online footprint, right? That's one example.
Yeah, no, that's good. Tell me, we've heard a lot about AI and it's become kind of a very much a marketing buzzword.
Yes.
I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, Scott Duro, and he was telling me about his wife was looking at a toothbrush and, and it was an AI powered toothbrush. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, it's like marketers are tapping in AI into everything. But what I'd like to understand is what part does machine learning specifically play in what you're doing in market insights? And then perhaps even explain the difference between machine learning and deep learning.
Sure. So, I think it's all of our underlying technologies, you could argue, is machine learning. And the idea is that you have information, right? You have training data. And so typically what happens is you get what we call, mechanical Turk type work. Basically, we have a job that says, can you look at these documents, for instance, and tell me which of these are relevant? So the example I gave you earlier about Eagles is maybe I want to know if you pick Philadelphia Eagles, I want to know which of these documents are relevant to Philadelphia Eagles, which are not. So we have humans who label these and say, hey, these pages are relevant these pages are not. So that's kind of the first step of machine learning. So you have training data, and then once you have training data, you can build a model, and then the model, you generate features, and then you go through the process of that, and then you have an algorithm, and then the algorithm can improve on itself by getting more training labels, meaning that you can pay for more people. We pay for people to humanly do it, but one of the benefits of users is that we can also use user activity to help inform that, because user behavior are implicit labels, right? Like if I show you 3 pages in your alerts, and you click on 2 of them and not the third one, and assume you like them, then the theory is that those 2 pages are basically a vote in favor of those 2. So if you type in Philadelphia Eagles and you click on 2 pages and not the third, I implicitly can say you basically are like a human label saying these first 2 are relevant and the third one not so relevant. And so we can improve the model through that in that regard. We also are looking at deep learning. I mean, deep learning is kind of a newer technology, which the idea is that we talk a little more about understanding features for machine learning. When you build a model, maybe the features for the Eagles might be, location, right? Maybe we learn that location is a huge indicator. People who are in the northeast part of America, near Philadelphia, tend to have an affinity toward it. So we have to build the features and then find the feature weights and everything else. Whereas the idea of deep learning, in theory, is you have a ton of training data and you throw it into a machine, right? And a lot of the information is what we call hidden nodes, but you don't actually know exactly what features or different things you're looking at, but the machine would automatically give you the best guess as what's relevant and what's not. And so that's kind of the next step. It requires a lot more data, a lot more processing, but given the drop in price of computing power and GPUs of late, there's just a lot more opportunity to apply deep learning, which is kind of just a subset of machine learning, if you say. I mean, machine learning is basically anything where you have use a machine to learn what people are doing, right? Mm-hmm. So deep learning is just one aspect of it.
Yeah. So what excites you about the future, not necessarily just in market insights here, but around where machine learning / even, let's say, deep learning is going? What excites you about it?
Yeah, I think what's exciting or interesting is just making our lives easier. I mean, I think that even initially when the models came out, you get these pop-up ads about recommending different things, and if they're irrelevant, you kind of think, oh, they're wasting my time, But the hope is that these models get better and better, more precise, and ingest more aspects of your footprint. We can actually provide better recommendations. For instance, if you're an executive, you want to fly, you have a customer in California, they contact you, right? And then we provide you information. Hey, this is what this company's about, right? That's the market insights. And then you say, okay, I'm interested. I want to do more. I want to reach out to them. So then we know you reach out to them. So next thing we do is we actually start doing research in California, right? There's companies in Southern California, for instance, and we do this. And then let's say you want to go fly down and visit them. Then once we know you do that, even implicitly, if we have access to, if you're in the same system, if you're using the Office network, and we see you opt in to allow us to say, hey, you have on your calendar, you have a trip to LA, then we can actually start taking information out of that and further applying recommendations. It's almost like having a human assistant, right? That's actually not human, right? And I think that's kind of the goal of the machine learning and algorithms. I think people worry about like the movies, where they say machines take over the world. I think that's probably farther down the road. I think the short term is helping make things better for you. I think about like self-driving cars, where that's a great vision, but I think the initial part is helping you be safer, right? I mean, like you might not have self-driving, or most cars have features that help you autocorrect. If you go out of your lane, it tells you you're out of lane. That's actually a self-driving feature, right? But
yeah, exactly.
It's just an assistant rather than it's going to just take over driving your car all the time.
Yeah. Practical AI rather than the visionary future sci-fi, nature of so much of it.
That's right. I think that's more realistic. So people get scared about all those things. I think we're still some time away from that, I think.
Yeah, agreed. Tell me, integration with common data services for apps, is that on the roadmap? What's your thinking around that?
Yeah, it's something that's a little further down. And the idea is, our product is currently in public preview, right? And we're going GA later this year. But later, after the first release, we think of that Market Dynamics 365 Market Insights as a surround app, where customers can get insights out of the box without needing data, to upload. So you don't have to upload your customer data. But so that lets you quickly use MI in conjunction with other products. But longer term, we want to integrate some of these signals into CDS so that they can be extracted when desired into other Dynamics products. So let's say once we start adding these insights, a person using the CRM solution can actually say, hey, these are my 11 companies. Pull out from CDS what information you have on these 11 companies through market insights.
I love it. I love it. Yeah.
We're even going a step further, talking to folks like in the sales team, or you say the sales product, that we can ingest the sales. We can actually do it ourselves in the product. We can do it in integration rather than have you pull data from CDS. We can actually have a in-product integration that says, hey, we can just figure out what your customer sales contacts are. So rather than have you enter topics, brands, and products into this alerts product, we can just go ahead and set them up for you and then say, hey, confirm that you want them and say, hey, we actually think you might want to get daily alerts on these 11 companies. Do you want these? And then you can pick and choose, but you can auto export any different things you care about. So that's kind of one thing we're thinking about doing next.
Awesome. It's been great talking to you, Walter. Let's just get on to some quick fire questions before we wrap up, because I'm looking forward to actually having some one-on-one time with you, because the whole area of machine learning and deep learning fascinates me, and kind of where that's going to go. But tell me, what are you currently doing to kind of learn new things? Like what's kind of, on your radar this year that you're aiming to increase your knowledge on?
Yeah, technically, I think learning more about deep learning. That's the new area of machine learning we talked about a little bit earlier. I've been looking recently at these things called LSTMs, or long short-term memory models, and the idea is that it helps you better understand context along short snippets, and that's exactly what we're doing. We're looking at search queries, we're looking at tweets that are 140 characters or less, or used to be up until recently. So, that's one area I'm looking at. Non-technically, I've been looking at understanding different work styles from different cultures. We have a good mix of people from different backgrounds in our team. And so, seeing how scientists, developers, and product people from different backgrounds approach problems is quite fascinating. I think that the diversity allows us to, develop a more meaningful product for a broader customer base.
Very good, very good. What's one thing you've always wanted to do and haven't done yet?
I want to set foot in all 50 states in the country. I know that's not really as ambitious as a lot of world travelers out there, but I think just because I mentioned at the beginning that I grew up in the Southeast and Midwest, and I worked in New England and the West Coast, I've hit about 45 states. So there may be a few more left. So hopefully in the next couple of years, I'll
have you got an app that you're tracking that with?
Not yet. If I should, maybe build one. I just do it manually.
There's one. It's called Bean, BEEN, and it lists all 50 states in America. And you
really?
Yeah. So I can see what percentage of America I've seen based on the states I've been in, but I've also can see what percentage of the world. That's if you're on iOS. Anyhow, it's
okay. Yeah, there's an app for everything out there.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks.
and you get, man, like I'm in Europe at the moment, right? And I'm just about to hit 50% of the countries in Europe, and it definitely motivates me to keep going and seeing, so it's quite good. When you think of personal success, a person that's been very successful, whether they might not even be alive now, but who comes to mind?
Satya Nadella, who's our CEO, comes first to mind. I think he's given clear direction to the company. He's given us a new boost of energy to all the employees. I think he's helped our company culture a lot by instilling this growth mindset. He followed two very prominent CEOs, Bill Gates and Steve Ballmer. So I think that he had to step out of big shadows, and I think he has done that. He took the challenge and done a great job, and we have a lot of confidence. One of the things that's been great is also he's been very supportive about market insights. Both himself and James. One thing that helps James Phillips, my manager, is that they both share my long-standing passion about using web signals and unique ML algorithms to provide unique values to our customers. So I think being on the same page with them has made it easier for us to build out our product. And, it's been fun also because you can see that they both appreciate the work we're doing. So it's great.
Awesome. Walter, who could you recommend as a guest on the show for future, particularly around the area of AI, machine learning, somebody in Microsoft, anyone jump to mind, and even maybe in the business app space as well?
Yeah, I think Frank Weigel is building out a customer bot program in AI, and he's one of my peers, and he's done a lot of interesting work there.
Awesome.
I think the Dynamics 365 customer insights area is also interesting. Vij Ragarajan and Satish Thomas, who's our GPM, are both doing good work in that area. So those are two people you can talk to.
Awesome. Thank you, Walter. It's been a pleasure to have you on the show. Before I let you go, if people want to follow you, where can they connect with you online?
I use Twitter some. It's under @WaltSun. I think the blog posts I've made about our products, you can actually reach out to me through there. I think there's information links there too.
Hey, thanks for listening. Have you got an AI story to share? Shout out to me on any of the social media platforms at NZ365Guy or hashtag NZ365Guy, and we can have a chat. Full show notes can be found at nz365guy.com/87. I'll see you next week.